just two guys in school together who try to be a little bit cooler. Um,
Well, hold on, not two
it-
guys. One guy and then the guy in the chair.
Still two guys.
Well, yeah, that is true. Hello, everyone. Welcome to No Drama, Just Movies. We are back once again with another review. This time we are reviewing none other than John Watts' Spider-Man Homecoming, which is, well, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. I won't spoil just yet. However, my name is Cameron Kelly Smith. I am joined by my esteemed colleague, none other than
Bill.
that's the one. Or in a alternate universe, my name is Ned and he is Peter. Maybe we could go that way. Or yeah, maybe or
Okay.
yeah, we'll give it a shot. We'll give it a shot. So obviously, as you know, we've been reviewing all of these Spider-Man, the live-action Spider-Man movies thus far. We reviewed all of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, 1, 2, 3. And we also reviewed the Mark Webb two Amazing Spider-Man movies. The links to those will be down below underneath this video. Now we are on to the Homecoming trilogy. As we have mentioned before, for anyone who doesn't know, currently in the UK, they're doing a big re-release of all the Spider-Man movies week by week. I believe it's the same in the US as well. So we are now on Spider-Man Homecoming. So the question that I'm going to ask you right now, as we just rewatched this movie a couple hours ago, did Marvel save Spider-Man?
Yes. Yes. Like absolutely fully redeemed. I think Spidey's back. And we love him again. I think it was an amazing film. Just like I loved it. It was just everything worked from the casting to the writing, the humor. It's definitely a Marvel film, but like peak Marvel.
Yeah, I mean, and I echo everything that you said. Obviously, one thing that you mentioned there is that this is a Marvel movie. And that very much goes in line with the question I asked you. Yeah, this is a Marvel movie. And yes, Marvel did save Spidey. Obviously, we wasn't in the rooms where discussions took place. For all we know, maybe Sony had a much bigger role in the movies as and then was let on. Maybe Amy Pascal, good old Amy Pascal, and people like RVR Ed, maybe they carried more of the weight. It seems very unlikely from everything that we've heard thus far. This does seem like Kevin Feige really did take the reins of this one, and it shows. It was before, and it still is now. It's my favorite live action Spider-Man movie of all time. I think that it is close to as perfect, in my opinion, of a Spider-Man movie that you can get. As you said, the humor, the fun, the emotion, it has everything. And obviously, as we've alluded to, this is coming off a time when, as the story goes after the Amazing Spider-Man 2, Amy Pascal said that she went to Kevin Feige and asked for help. He recommended, how about, well, we just do it for you. And she, classically said that she then threw a sandwich at him because she was so, what's the word, upset at that suggestion. But we ended up getting the best of both worlds. And thank
Yeah.
goodness, when that deal did come together, when it was announced that Sony and Marvel would be joining forces and that Spider-Man would be coming over to the MCU, I still remember that announcement. Like, I still remember, the joy and the buzz that was in the fandom. Like, it's definitely one of the biggest announcements and pieces of news I think ever to come out in the superhero movie space. I remember how much that meant to people at the time. And, obviously we're watching this movie now in 2024, but back then when it did release, like, this felt like God's gift. It felt like everything people had wanted. We were seeing a great Spider-Man movie with a great Spider-Man, a great Peter Parker, in set within the MCU. And I think, as you said, I think it's an important point you made that this is one of the perfect examples of an MCU movie where it's in the MCU, but it's not all about the MCU. It was the perfect marriage. It's the classic example of MCU at its peak, when you have a movie that serves the wider universe, but it also serves the story they're trying to tell. Quick question though. Was there anything about this movie for you that didn't work?
No, I couldn't see a fault. Like I tried to look, and I'm sure there are like mistakes or something that doesn't work in there. And obviously, like there have been complaints about Tony Stark being in it, and this being a little bit too much of an Avengers or like hidden Avengers film. I don't mind. I think it fit with the story they were trying to tell, which is really like Peter having had this great adventure with the Avengers, and now he has to like be content with like the small stuff, and it's not enough for him anymore. So having like little mentions of the Avengers and having Tony Stark in there as like a representation of them, it worked for me. Like it was right. It was the right choice. So I couldn't see anything wrong with this film.
I agree. That's the thing. Like, I understand people's complaints that they had throughout the entire trilogy of, this felt like Iron Man Jr. or Iron
Yeah.
Man Light, and it's we never get Peter by himself. And obviously, I think that those criticisms, I think, definitely come more, for example, in Far From Home, which we will review obviously next week, which obviously takes place after the events of Endgame. But as you said, in this one, it fits. Like, it makes sense. This is a Spider-Man who literally was your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He achieves this 15-year-old kid gets to live the dream of a lifetime. Tony Stark knocks on his door and says, "Listen, I need your help to fight, well, a fraction of a half of the Avengers at this point." Like, after that, this 15-year-old kid who feels like they've hit the big time, they've hit the jackpot, it made sense that you then would have this kid, as you said, that is like, "Listen, like, I want to be an Avenger now. This is what this is
Mhm.
about for me." That, who wouldn't want to, but, and at the same time, I think that this is a great example of a movie where you do really see the beautiful relationship between Tony Stark and Peter, and how well Tom Holland and Robert Downey Jr. play off each other in this as well. Some of, like, for example, in the movie, there's that scene a bit more early on when Peter is chasing down some of Adrian's goons. This is where we first get introduced to what appears to be good old Miles Morales' Uncle Aaron. But you have that scene where, for example, he first encounters Vulture, and then he parachutes down and falls into the lake or ravine, whatever it is, and then you have the Iron Man suit that saves him, and he's getting excited, thinking that Tony's really come to save him. Then you have that hilarious scene of Tony, obviously seemingly in India or
Yeah.
somewhere, having the time of his life. But the juxtaposition with that, and then later on in the movie where he messes up with the ferry, and Tony's having a go at him, and he's like, if you really cared, you would actually be here right now. Then you actually have the reveal that he is here. He did care about you enough to come and help you and sort out. And I felt that mentorship, that fatherly son like relationship, just really works. As
Mm.
I said, I think you can explore a bit more and talk about the critiques of that when you reach like a Far From Home, where it feels like maybe you're starting to overdo it a bit. But in
Yeah.
this movie, it works.
Definitely, definitely. Um, but is there anything that you didn't like then?
That's the thing. Like, it's hard for me to fish something out. Like, I feel like this is like we never had something like this before. Like, we never actually got a true adolescent Spider-Man story that actually felt right and that really conveyed like this. I remember when I watched this for the first time, and even when I watched it with you today, like on the time of recording, it makes you remember some of those times of when you were in school. Like, you may not have lived the exact same experience,
No.
but it reminds you of some of those experiences in school where there was the girl you had the crush on, or going to class, or having a close friend or different friends. Like, everyone can relate to it, I think, to some degree, even if your experience wasn't exactly the same. And that does make it also incredibly nostalgic, and it does pull on the heartstrings a little bit, because everyone has the thing about Peter Parker that's so great, and the way that he's portrayed in this movie, is that everyone can relate to him because everyone has been at least a version of him at some point. You may not have spider powers, but you've been in school and had the crush on the girl. You've had your cool friends. You've been made fun of. You've experienced some of it, and there's a beauty in that, seeing that actually on screen for the first time properly. And like, huge props to Tom Holland. Like, he truly is the definitive Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Like,
Easily.
and we have just literally been watching all the Spider-Man movies week after week, back to back, and they're very fresh in our minds. But he nothing comes close to him, man. Like, truly a gem. I feel like, I think Marvel, and credit to Sony as well, but obviously Marvel were hugely responsible for the casting, and they have done very well with casting over
Mhm.
their entire tenure of the MCU. Um, I think that Tom Holland is up there though in terms of some of the best casting they've ever done. Like he just fits. But to answer your question fully, like it's hard for me to take apart things of this movie that maybe I didn't really feel like I enjoyed. Like, one of the criticisms, for example, is that the MCU has a villain problem, right? That they
Mhm.
don't really necessarily always explore their villains, or they kind of seem to come and go. This was an example where I can't even criticize that because I really like Adrian Toomes, like especially because of the fact that, and we'll get to, the fact that he is the father of Peter's love interest in this movie, and so it just works. It really does.
As also, he's very, first of all, sympathetic. Like the beginning, you see, like it opens with him, first of all. So we get to see him first before we see Peter. And he's just a working guy who tries to make money for his family and like keep his guys employed. And so the system screws him with like the cleanup crew, or I can't remember what.
Damage control.
Damage controls. Thank you. With them
Cleanup
coming
crew
in,
works.
it's the same.
Yeah.
With them coming in and snatching everything away, and you sort of you empathize with him, um, because he's the little guy, right? Just trying to get by, and then the big guy comes and bullies him out of the job. Um, and so just like he's kind of right in
Mm.
what he's doing. Um, Not always going about it the right way or like a safe way, but you kind of agree with him at times. And I think those are the best Marvel villains, like Killmonger, for example, as well, who's like correct. We go, he has a
Yeah.
point, and maybe you should like listen to him a little bit.
Mm.
Um, so definitely a great villain, and of course, like Michael Keaton's performance, he was just also really, really great for this part.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like, while we're on like the topic of Michael Keaton, like that whole scene, or the two scenes when you go from Peter turning up at Adrian's home, to take out, Liz for homecoming, and then, he knocks on the door, and then you have that surprise moment of the door opening and him seeing that, the father of Liz is Adrian. And the way that's performed, like you see it on Tom's face, like the way that like he's just in such shock, and there's fear there as well. And
Mhm.
the way that Michael Keaton plays it is really well done. So when you then go, when to me, like that scene in the car is gonna go down as a classic. Like we were talking about this after the movie. Like it it's not dumb. Like, sometimes you have like, for example, when we saw the Amazing Spider-Man 2, at the end of that movie when, Harry comes down as Goblin, and, he
Yeah.
sees Gwen and Spider-Man, and, he takes one look at Gwen, one look at Spider-Man, and he's like, so you must be Peter. And it's like, that's not realistic. But the thing I like about in this one is that he's actually connecting the dots, right? Like Peter's there, Liz is saying, "Oh yeah, so you have the Stark internship." He's like, "Oh really? How is Mr. Stark? Oh, by the way, he's met Spider-Man. Oh really? How is that guy? Oh, he was in DC. Oh yeah, you kept disappearing all the time." It's like, really? And like Adrian's even like, your voice sounds similar. We must have crossed paths somewhere. It makes sense that you would connect all the dots, and that's what makes it a riveting scene, because you're seeing him connect the dots in the car, and he's playing it so well. His facial expressions are so good. And then you're seeing Tom behind Peter, like you're seeing that fear of him really hoping he doesn't clock on. So when he does clock on, when the penny does drop, and I remember seeing that for the first time in the cinema, and everyone be like, "Holy!" Like it just hits so well. And you then have that moment where he does turn up to homecoming. He gives him the death speech pretty much. But even in that, there's still an admiration for Peter. You saved my daughter, and for that, you always have my appreciation. But I'm doing this for my family, and I need you to stay out of it. And then Peter obviously making the decision to go, instead of me living out this dream as the 15-year-old kid taking my dream date to homecoming, I'm gonna go and do this because I feel like this is the right thing. And it's just beautiful, man. Just beautifully done.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you mentioned the car scene, and I think what makes it so great is that dynamic between the three characters. Like you've got Liz who knows nothing. She doesn't know that her dad is the Vulture. She doesn't know that Peter is Spider-Man. Then you've got Peter who knows that her dad, Adrian Toomes, is the Vulture, and the Vulture doesn't know that he's Spider-Man. So you've got these,
Mm.
like different levels of knowledge. So when Liz starts blabbing about like DC and how Peter keeps disappearing, we as the audience go, "Stop talking."
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it away. And then Peter obviously knows like your dad is the Vulture, so I don't want him to know these kind of things. So there's in like the tension of just this triangle of knowledge, I guess. Um and just on like great scenes. This movie was absolutely full of just like iconic scenes. Like we
Mm.
watched all the Spider-Man, and there are great scenes in all of them. Like the train scene, for example, in Spider-Man 2,
Yeah.
which it will live forever in my mind. But this one had like all of them. Like it had the
Mm.
boat scene was basically the train scene, I would say.
Yeah.
But it had that. It had that car scene. It had the building collapse towards the end. It's just full of like amazing scenes. Even the smallest stuff where he fights the Avengers, the fake Avengers in the bank,
Mm.
was really cool. Maybe not like as iconic, but it's still like memorable. And just
Yeah.
so many cool like set pieces and scenes and moments that like elevated the film, I think.
Yeah, I mean, even on that note, you mentioned the scene when the building collapses on him.
Mm.
Like that scene was so powerful because, and we spoke about this, like it really made you feel that you are watching a child fearing for his life. And
That scream he does when he cries for help is like the desperation in that
yeah,
voice and that. Yeah, he's just fantastic from him, from Tom.
and that's one of the biggest things I will say about the movie as well. The fact that it does make you believe and you do genuinely feel that you are following the story of this 15-year-old child trying to make his way through his teenage years and doing his typical teenage stuff in school, but bearing the responsibility of having this life-threatening job, and it just really hits home in ways that I think some of the other movies don't make you feel as much. Like and credit to John Hughes. I think John Hughes and obviously John Watts. Obviously John Hughes. His movies are obviously a big inspiration for John Watts. For just how, but John Watts specifically for how he directed this movie, the screenplay. Just credit to all involved. And I think that if you're gonna come off a movie like The Amazing Spider-Man 2, like Marvel truly hit it out of the park. And this must have been a real passion project for Kevin Feige as well, getting to, introduce Spidey to the MCU. And it works. I mean, if I had to give one critique, sometimes I wasn't the biggest fan of the suit. Visually, I'm not the biggest fan of it. But it's also, I guess the suit also does make sense because,
Mm.
Tony would give him an upgrade. It's his mentor, he's a 15-year-old kid. It makes sense that Tony would be like, here, I'm gonna help you out a little bit here so you're ready. But yeah, I think just beautiful, man. Like I can't sing the praises for this movie any more than I am. Like perfect casting, perfect story, just beautiful, beautiful around.
Like on that suit you mentioned, I think I what I loved as well was just how tight the theme was, I guess.
Mm.
Because I feel like it was all about Peter trying to, he's got that great power, and now he wants that great responsibility to go with it. He wants to be an Avenger. He doesn't want to like save cats from trees. He wants to save the world. And just this idea that Tony Stark like limits him. He says like, "Oh, don't worry about the Avengers stuff. We'll call you when you're ready. For now, just be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man." And the whole thing with the suit that there's like trainee wheels protocol or whatever
Mm.
it's called, and like the child-proof child lock or something.
Yeah.
That all those are like in place. they fit the theme so well that he's got all this potential in that suit, but he can't access it yet because it's too much responsibility for him
Mm.
for now. But he wants it, and once he does get it, once he like Ned unlocks the whole suit, or the capabilities of this suit, he struggles with it, and it gets a little bit overwhelming for him.
Yeah.
And I think that's a wonderful like little detail to just show the theme again, of that like responsibility is too much for him right now. He just needs to stick with the smaller stuff. He needs to stick with his own little suit that he made himself, and just be friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Yeah, and I think that links heavily as well to the final and one of the final scenes of the movie, when Tony decides that he wants to officially announce him as the newest member of the Avengers. He has the press waiting, and for Peter to make that decision to go, actually, you know what, this has been quite an overwhelming experience for me. I'm still a kid.
Hmm.
Maybe it's best if I do just stick to now being your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. What I once wanted, I realized maybe it's not something I'm ready for. It's a bit much, and this is better for me. And I thought that was a perfect, little scene is there as well towards the end, as well as also the actual end where he's putting on the suit, and then you end with Marisa Tomei, the amazing Marisa Tomei, obviously her there as Aunt May saying what the as we cut, just great, and also as
Yeah.
well shout out to the mid-credit scene. Post-credit scene, well, I think you like that more than I did, but with the mid-credit scene, the idea of Scorpion asking Vulture to give up the identity of Spider-Man and him refusing to. I think that was a nice little tidbit, and I like to see if they ever do follow that up. They haven't thus far, but I felt that was an interesting. I like that. That was an interesting tidbit. I think that said a lot. But anything else you want to add before we go to our review score?
Just like as a final thing, that I love the idea that Peter was allowed to be a kid, that he was allowed to be a teenager, and just like the joy Tom Holland brought to it. And I think for the first time, it kind of brought Peter and Spider-Man together, because you have that Peter's youthful joy, which came over into that Spider-Man, and that's why Spider-Man is so quippy and like keeps talking all the time, simply because he enjoys being Spider-Man so much.
Mm.
Just he can't shut up. But you have that as Peter as well, where he he just loves that world of like avenging. But also that he's got a friend now, in Ned, and that they're like just two guys in school together who try to be a little bit cooler. Um,
Well, hold on, not two
they-
guys, one guy, and then the guy in the chair.
Kill two guys.
Well, yeah, that is true.
One is in the chair.
Can't forget the guy in the chair.
But yeah, that they have that, and their friendship is cute. Like building the Death Star, they're really like geeky guys, and you believe that they're just geeks. So yeah, I love that portrayal, or like the characterization of Peter Parker.
Yeah. I mean, last thing I'll say as well is obviously, we do get Donald Glover in here as good old Uncle Aaron, making the reference to his nephew, hopefully a young
Mm.
Miles Morales one day soon to pop up, and obviously, that was a big little tease that they made. It's been a while since then, but I would like to see that pay off one day.
Because he
I
was
would like
in
to see
the
that pay off.
in the second Spider-Verse, right?
Yeah, as a
Multiple
cameo, yeah, as
Worlds,
the
like
Prowler.
quickly showed up as a prowler as Uncle Aaron.
Yeah. So it will be nice maybe one day if they pay that off. I'm sure it's coming. Amy Pascal seems to be talking a lot about Miles, so I'm sure one day
Mm.
he's coming. But first we have some more Tom Holland movies to come. Obviously, the news yesterday coming out that
Oh, that.
Destin Daniel Cretton is now the new director of Spider-Man 4, so I look forward to that. However, Spider-Man Homecoming, we are now doing a new review score. So instead of a number out of 10, we do a certain amount of ices out of 10. Ices being the drink you get in a cinema, whether it be, a slush puppy or an ice blast or a tango ice blast, whatever you call it. But here we call it ices. So Spider-Man Homecoming, how many ices out of 10 are you giving this movie?
Full score, baby. I'm gonna go all 10.
Woo!
As I think it's like I said, if it's a perfect film, if there are faults, I don't want to see them.
Mm.
They don't exist for me. I loved it. I didn't feel bored a single moment. And this is like the third or fourth time I've watched it, so I know the beats. But like Tom Holland is awesome in it. Like the acting, the story, the jokes. It's all just like a perfect mix of Spider-Man. And yeah, 10 out of 10.
Damn. Well, okay, so you're giving it 10 ICs out of 10. I am gonna go with 9.5 ICs out of 10. The reason why I'm not going out of 10 is because I think that for us as amazing as it is, I think that I have a bar in my mind as to what a comic book movie is at its peak. And I think it just just misses out of it. I think that the 10 out of 10s I think I hold for a certain very, very few.
Okay.
But it does come close. But I'm going to go with a 9.5 ICs out of 10. So you're going with 10 ICs out of 10. We're going with 9.5 ICs out of 10, which is definitely our highest reviewed Spider-Man thus
Nice so
far.
far.
Yep. So next will be obviously Spider-Man Far From Home. So we'll be on to that and see what good old Mysterio is up to. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for checking out our review of Spider-Man Homecoming. Once again, we are No Drama Just Movies. We release weekly movie reviews, whether it be current film releases that are playing in cinema or any of your cult classics that we are delving into. Also, we also sometimes will talk about any big notable topics in the world of movie news and potentially TV, depending on how we feel. If you do like this video, please drop a like down below on this video. Please comment, subscribe as well. We enjoy doing this. We enjoy talking about movies, and we would love to build a bit of a community here so we can have other people that can, discuss this with us as well. Let us know what you think about Spider-Man Homecoming. Does it still hold up? Did you like it as much as we do, or do you think he truly is just Iron Man Jr.? So once again, we are No Drama, Just Movies. My name is Cameron Kelly Smith, and I am joined by. That's it. Come on. He is the
Click on.
Peter to my Ned, or the Aunt May to my
Yeah.
Happy. I don't know. We'll make it work. But ladies and gentlemen, we are No Drama, Just Movies. Thank you very much, and we will see you very, very soon. Take care, guys.